Michael, I need to talk to you for a second. On my way to the site, I was stopped by Elizabeth, the department head. Yes, what is it? It was rare for Elizabeth to approach me, so I replied, bewildered. This isn't something to discuss here. Come to the conference room. Following her to the conference room, we sat down facing each other. Sorry, but you're fired. We've hired an employee with a higher education. I was speechless at the sudden announcement of being fired. My name is Michael Parker. I'm an engineer managing the company's distribution system. You're a middle school dropout, aren't you? I wonder about a company that entrusts the management of its logistics system to a dropout. Angered by Elizabeth's words, I retorted. Does education really matter when it comes to managing? Indeed, I was a middle school dropout, but I had studied systems on my own, and the company recognized my efforts, allowing me to join. The former department head, Tyler, who had worked hard for my hiring, was Elizabeth's predecessor, and it was thanks to him that I was employed at this company to this day. I lost my parents in a car accident when I was 5, leaving me without siblings or relatives, and I was placed in a child care facility. There was a computer donated to the facility, and since using a computer in 5th grade during a school lesson, I was drawn into the world of computers. I spent every possible moment at the facility on the computer, growing interested in programming. I reviewed and applied what I learned in class, making my own games to play with friends by the time I reached middle school. Though advised to pursue further education for my knowledge, financial constraints prevented me from advancing beyond middle school. The facility was always full, and knowing there were families unable to place their children there, I decided to leave upon graduating middle school and took a job living in and working at a burger shop that also provided meals for workers. Tyler, a frequent customer at the burger shop near the company, started talking to me soon after I started working. You're quite a young waiter, aren't you? When I was wiping tables and guiding Tyler, who was waiting for a seat, he spoke to me. The shop owner, Brandon, and Tyler were childhood friends. He's hired through a referral from the local child care facility. He's surprisingly knowledgeable about computers. He's even keeping the books on a computer, showing profits from sales at a glance. It's interesting to see which menu items are popular and the profit margins for each. Though, it's a bit annoying to find out things we'd rather not know. He laughed. Tyler, intrigued by my computer skills, said, "That's impressive. Our company is considering systematizing our logistics department. Computers are becoming a must-have, and without them, we can keep up with management. Even if you're busy, keep studying. If you're still studying computers at 18, we'll take you in at our company." By that time, I was hoping to leave the shop to him and take it easy. Well, working for Tyler's company will probably offer him a better future. Michael, give it a try. Brandon encouraged me. Both the facility and school recognized my computer skills, and I was glad to be acknowledged. When Tyler mentioned the logistics system, my salary was low and I didn't have much money to spare, but I saved up to buy a computer and spent any free time I had studying programming on it. Learning that tablets could speed up ordering and automate sales tallying, I programmed a system, bought a used cell phone to use as a tablet for orders, and tested it. I showed this to Tyler and received advice, improving the program. The shop, despite its old appearance, underwent high-tech upgrades, attracting visitors, including those from system-related companies. Brandon supported my experiments, providing money and time, allowing me to gain considerable knowledge by the age of 18. Then, Tyler offered, "You've done well to learn so much on your own. Would you like to join our company?" Though I felt guilty leaving the shop after Brandon had been so kind for 3 years, he said, "I didn't teach you to cook because I hoped you'd eventually join Tyler's company. Teaching you how to make burger wouldn't help you as a company employee. It's better not to learn things halfway." The shop is old, and even if someone took it over, it would need to be rebuilt. I don't want to ask that much of anyone. Once you're employed, you'll rent an apartment and live there. This shop will close eventually. Hearing that suddenly made me feel lonely. It was because the place had been like a home to me. If you need a guarantor when renting an apartment, I'll be it. I'll hire someone who seems like they could benefit from this experience. Perhaps from the childcare facility. Come eat here once in a while. Brandon tried to alleviate my guilt. I told Tyler about this, and he said, "That's because you worked hard. I've heard about your efforts from Brandon. Please take care of him. He's been a caring person since he was young." Tyler then suggested, "It's about time for you to take the employment exam. Sorry, but our company has never hired a middle school graduate for a technical position. It seems best if I headhunt you. Could you summarize the system you created at the burger shop in your resume? We'll consider it as part of the first round of selection." Following his request, I prepared my resume and handed it to him. Understandably, there was significant opposition within the company, but Tyler wanted them to see my skills. He arranged for me and a third-year engineer to compete in programming skills, and if I was deemed superior, I would be hired. I went to the company on the day Tyler mentioned to take the exam. After informing Brandon, he closed the shop the day before the exam to buy me a suit, accompanying me to the store. Trying on the suit and showing Brandon, he teared up, happy to see my growth. Wearing a suit for the first time felt awkward, and not knowing how to wear a tie, I was embarrassed when a female clerk did it for me. Teased by Brandon, someone commented, "You two seem like a close father and son." Upon hearing those words, I replied, "That's right. He's truly a wonderful father, and I love him dearly." When I looked at Brandon, he was moved to tears by my words. After Brandon paid the bill, I received the suit and thanked him. Embarrassed, Brandon patted my shoulder and left the store. Following him out, I found him crying behind the store. Seeing him like that, I approached and asked, "Brandon, would you consider adopting me? I want you to be my dad." Brandon nodded quietly, saying, "Are you sure about me?" I wanted to say it myself but couldn't find the words. "I'm so glad you feel that way." And it seemed he was calling Tyler about it. That night, Tyler, Brandon, and I went out to eat to celebrate the adoption. "I've wanted to adopt you since the day I took you in. I'm glad your dream has come true." I never imagined Brandon felt that way, so I was truly happy. "We have an exam tomorrow, so we should call it an early night and rest." They sent me home first, but it seems Brandon and Tyler were drinking until the early hours. The next day, I left for the employment exam without waking Brandon. Though I was anxious about what the exam would entail, I was determined to study again and seize the opportunity if I failed. After the interview, I took the same exam as an employee 3 years into the company, who confidently wrote his program. I was surprised by the speed of his typing but remained calm and focused on my programming. After completing my program within the time limit, it seemed the employee had not finished his. Our programs were collected and tested on a test machine. First, the employee's program was tested, with the supervisor checking it. Although it functioned as required, it wasn't fully completed, resulting in deductions and an apparent score of 80 points. Then, my program was tested. Though not perfect, it scored 95 points. Given my self-taught skills despite being a middle school dropout, I was judged fit for employment. I immediately announced the good news to Brandon, sharing our joy. Returning to the shop, regular customers joined in celebrating, and I was set to start working the next day. We formally completed the adoption process, and I took Brandon's surname, Parker. After joining the company, the implementation of the logistics system became more intensive, and I became a part of the systematization project. Creating something from nothing was truly challenging. Programming and testing followed by revisions were repeated, sometimes clashing with team members as we pushed forward with the systematization. Eventually, the systematization was successfully launched, achieving significant results. After the project, I was left as the sole person responsible from the start and was tasked with managing the system. As the system went into operation, Tyler retired, having seen it through. "Michael, you did well to launch it. This system will reduce employee workload and errors, and cut labor costs. It's a significant advantage for the company." Tyler praised the system's introduction and operation, which was recognized as an achievement. He had been offered a position as an executive but chose to retire and enjoy his post-retirement life. Similarly, Brandon, now my adopted father, passed the burger shop on to a young person from the child care facility and retired. The young person also became part of our family through adoption, giving me a brother. Despite not being biologically related, we took care of our father together. Although Brandon had intended to close the shop, he reluctantly agreed to let my brother take over, secretly pleased. With their burdens lifted, Brandon and Tyler enjoyed their retirement, traveling and playing golf together. After Tyler retired, Elizabeth, who transferred from the sales department, became the head of our department. Elizabeth, who had no understanding of technical matters, often presented me with unreasonable demands, causing frequent conflicts between us. Whenever I refuted her points in meetings, it seemed to hurt her pride. She would leave the meeting room with a flushed face, a situation that worried our colleagues. "Don't embarrass her too much. It's not good for your position. She's trying to make suggestions for the company." They tried to calm me down, but I couldn't stay silent when faced with criticisms of the system we all worked hard to establish. I disliked the disdainful look she sometimes showed, as if she looked down on people. When I glared back at her, knowing she didn't understand anything, Elizabeth, who was fiercely competitive, would glare back. I heard she had many conflicts with colleagues even when she was in sales. Even after she came to our department and knew I was the most knowledgeable about this system, she refused to acknowledge it. In this company, no one knew the logistics system better than I did, handling troubleshooting and improvements alone. The conversation in the meeting room was shocking. "Really, she understands nothing." Disappointed, I sighed and said, "Understood, I'll resign as Elizabeth wishes. Who will be my successor? It's a complex system, so I'd like to do a proper handover." I wanted to ensure a smooth transition for my successor, but Elizabeth's response was, "There's no need to take over from a middle school dropout like you. We'll leave it to a more educated employee," she mocked. Frustrated by her words, I simply said, "Understood," then left the meeting room, returned to my desk, and wrote my resignation letter. When I submitted the resignation to Justin, the manager, he was visibly shocked. "Out of the blue, what's wrong? Are there issues with your terms of employment? Losing you would be a significant problem for the company. If there are any grievances about your conditions, please speak up." When Tyler retired, he specifically asked me to take good care of you. "I thought I was making things comfortable for you, so where did you find dissatisfaction?" Seeing the troubled look, I relayed exactly what Elizabeth had said to me. Elizabeth comes from a sales background and doesn't understand the technical aspects, so there's no need to take her seriously. Even if she talks about hiring highly educated employees, you're the only one who can manage that system, and even if someone were to take over, it would take at least a year, right? Justin seemed quite angry at Elizabeth's remarks. "I don't mind leaving, but I do want to ensure a proper handover, given the complexity of the system's architecture. Stopping the system would cause significant damage to the company." Justin nodded in agreement. "That's exactly why. Let me hold on to this resignation letter for now. I'll talk to Elizabeth about the risks involved with your leave and try to get her to reconsider," he said. "Thank you, I appreciate it." As I was about to leave, Justin asked, "Just out of curiosity, what do you plan to do after resigning from the company?" "I'll probably help at my brother's burger shop for a while." "Good to know you'll be around. We might hire you as a contractor if needed. That way, you won't have to deal with Elizabeth, and it might be more comfortable for you," he suggested. If she agrees to it, haha, I doubt she'd use me out of spite. I told Justin I wouldn't come to the office until a decision was made and decided to head home for the day. My father and brother were surprised by my early return, and they became quite concerned after I explained the situation. This experience made me truly understand the value of family for the first time. Although I had been worried over when I fell ill while living in the child care facility, being worried over by family somehow felt pleasing. Meanwhile, Justin spent time explaining to Elizabeth the contributions I had made to the company and what would happen without me. However, she refused to acknowledge his points, leading to the decision of my resignation being finalized. Justin reportedly confronted Elizabeth, asking, "If the logistics system fails and causes damage to the company, how do you intend to take responsibility?" Elizabeth coldly replied, "If the system built by a middle school dropout fails, then it just means it was flawed. We can just rebuild it. I don't think it's that difficult, especially since we've brought in employees from prestigious universities." Without taking her eyes off her computer, Justin relayed to me over beers at my family's shop, "Michael, I'm sorry. My inability to protect you is my fault," Justin said, downing his beer and asking for another. "Justin, I appreciate your concern, but don't drink too much. It won't help if you antagonize Elizabeth further and jeopardize your position. If the new employee can handle it, that might be for the best. Now that I'm resigning, I'm thinking of enrolling in a distance learning high school. I've realized the importance of having at least a high school diploma," I mentioned. "It's frustrating. I thought the strength of a technical job was that qualifications didn't matter as much. It feels like a denial of everything I've worked for." Justin, who had climbed the ranks based on his skills despite the educational hierarchy, was clearly upset on my behalf. Grateful for his support, I suggested, "Why not let Elizabeth's new hire try managing the system and see how it goes? I'll help out if there's trouble, regardless of the cost." Hearing this, my father chimed in, "That's a good suggestion. I'd be happy if you did that. Have you talked to Tyler about this?" I replied, "He's enjoying his retirement too much for me to worry him, and he can't really intervene with the company anymore. It would only upset him to know, asking to keep this matter confidential for Tyler's sake." That day, Justin stayed at the shop until late and didn't seem to want to leave, so I drove him home. Thinking of what I could do for him, I decided to create handover documents. I spent the next 2 weeks at night working on the handover documents and handed them to Justin on the day of my farewell. As I left the company, surrounded by many colleagues, Elizabeth and her new employee, Ethan, seemed unbothered and continued working afterward. Justin had tried to get Ethan to say goodbye, but she refused, adhering only to Elizabeth's instructions, and Justin stopped trying to communicate with her. After resigning, I enrolled in a distance learning high school and started attending classes. Spending my days without any contact from the company, I felt a mix of relief, assuming things were going smoothly, and a sense of loneliness. Then one night, I received a call from Justin. Answering the phone, I could hear his voice, filled with urgency. "The logistics management system has shut down. Ethan made changes without proper checks and without backup data. It's irreparable." "I'll head over right away," I said, going to the company where Justin was waiting. Led by Justin into the control room, I saw Ethan surrounded by many people, being yelled at. "When will it be fixed? You said you could handle it, didn't you? Not taking backups is sheer negligence. Who's going to take responsibility for this?" Amidst the chaos, Ethan lost his cool. "I told Elizabeth I couldn't do it. If you have complaints, talk to her. She knows how to handle the responsibility," pushing the blame onto Elizabeth. Elizabeth was nowhere to be seen, having left after learning of the mishap. "Now, fixing it is the priority. Michael, you're the only one we can rely on," Justin pleaded, and I approached Ethan. "Ethan, right. Tell me what happened." Ethan retorted, "It's none of your business anymore." This angered a former colleague. "How can you say that to Michael, who came all this way to help?" After moving Ethan away from the computer, they said, "Thank you for coming. Please, we're counting on you, and let me sit in front of the computer." Looking at the program, I realized it was one of the most complex parts of the system, which made me nervous. Taking a deep breath to focus and analyze, I worked to understand the current situation while reverting the changes Ethan had likely made back to the original programming, progressing with a restoration. To my own surprise, it seemed I had memorized the challenging parts of the program due to past difficulties, and within about an hour, the restoration was complete. After verification, the issue was resolved, leading to applause from my former colleagues, and I was greeted with numerous handshakes. Standing by, Ethan angrily exclaimed, "You've made such a complicated program. Did you design it to be understood only by yourself, making it impossible for anyone else to intervene? That's a cowardly way to do things." I didn't do anything like that. It just turned out this way because I was trying to meet everyone's demands. This part of the program alone took months to develop. It's a complex and meaningful section to me. If you had examined it properly, you would have realized it wasn't something to tamper with, I replied. Tell that to Elizabeth. She said that since a middle school dropout made a program, anyone should be able to handle it. But looking at it, it's clear that finding someone capable of programming at this level would be rare in the US. How did you acquire such skills? Ethan spoke with frustration, but I left without responding. Walking to the company gate with Justin and former colleagues who saw me off, they said, "Elizabeth's reaction tomorrow will be something to see. We might even start a petition to have you come back. The company needs you," but I wasn't holding my breath. However, recalling the satisfaction of programming and seeing my work come to life reignited my desire to continue in this field. I considered seeking employment at an IT company, but my educational background posed a significant barrier. The only connections I had were with my previous employer, and if I wanted to remain in this line of work, returning there seemed like the only option. These thoughts occupied my mind as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. As I pondered through the night, dawn broke, leaving me to battle sleep deprivation throughout the day at the shop. That day, Elizabeth showed up at work as if nothing had happened, receiving a report from Ethan. When she found out I had resolved the issue, she reportedly slammed her desk in frustration. Ethan, witnessing this, was taken aback, and it seems a rift developed between them thereafter, leading to a breakdown in communication. The atmosphere within the department also deteriorated, prompting Justin to visit the shop more frequently to vent his frustrations. Next time there's a significant issue with the logistics system, Ethan might quit. He seems to be managing minor troubles, but it's taking too much time, and he feels overwhelmed. His reception among colleagues is poor. Elizabeth has turned a blind eye and stopped addressing Ethan's situation. Maybe she's planning to bring in a new employee. Saying so, he continued to ask for another beer as usual. "What's the best course of action?" I asked. "The best solution would be for you to return and for Elizabeth to be transferred," Justin muttered under his breath. "Demotion might be too harsh. Perhaps a transfer would suffice." With only 3 months until April, Justin considered leaving the company if Elizabeth remained. "How about we start a company together, Michael? I feel like we can achieve anything together." "You don't have to quit. I've thought about starting a business, especially after fixing the system the other day. It felt like I could still do it and wanted to test my skills, but with my educational background and no connections locally, it seems like returning to my previous employer might be my only option." My father, who rarely interjected, encouraged me. "Why are you so hung up on that? Go out there and test your skills. There's always someone better, and that's how you grow. Even if your educational background follows you, it doesn't matter if you're working for yourself. There's nothing to lose." Inspired by his words, I resolved. "All right, Father, I'll give it a try." "Good. If you're going places, get your driver's license first." "What about high school?" "Maybe I'll get the license first. Educational background doesn't matter if I'm working for myself," I concluded. As my father and I got excited about the prospects, Justin playfully protested being left out. "Hey, I was the one who brought it up, so include me too." I advised Justin to reconsider quitting due to his family and financial responsibilities and suggested waiting until the end of March personal changes. "In the meantime, could you introduce someone?" Convinced by my reasoning, Justin agreed, and I started attending driving school the next day. The driving school was crowded with the students about to graduate from high school, and seeing their various school uniforms made me sigh deeply. Thinking that these kids were ahead of me in terms of educational background, I felt frustrated, making even the thought of going to driving school painful. Despite the challenge, I was determined to finish as quickly as possible, attending every available class from morning till evening and obtaining my license in a month and a half. Next, I looked into buying a car during a break, and my father and brother approached me with smiles, handing me something. Seeing it, I immediately knew what it was. It was a set of car keys. They led me to the parking lot, where a white light van with a Narvis driver's sticker was parked. "This is for me." They nodded, and we got into the car. I got into the driver's seat and drove without thinking about a destination. We reminisced about the times we started working at the shop together, driving around until the gas tank was empty, caught up in our lively conversations. "I wonder what my life would have been like if I hadn't met you. You gave me love and let me pursue what I wanted. I'm truly grateful," I mused. "That's good to hear. All I did was not hinder you and offer support. It's just normal for parents to do that for their children. Don't hesitate to ask me for anything. You're still young with a long future ahead. Believe in yourself, and someone will notice," my father assured. My brother nodded in agreement from the back seat. "Thank you, I'll do my best." The next day, I decided to make my former employer my first business client. When I called Justin to tell him about my independence, he offered, "Congratulations on striking out on your own. I'd like to give you some work to commemorate your independence." Justin had prepared by asking the team that launched the logistics system to help, and they had arranged work for me. I was called to the company for a meeting. As I waited in the conference room for Justin, Elizabeth entered. "Michael, it's been a while. The last time we spoke was here, wasn't it? I'm truly grateful you came to fix the trouble last time. I didn't realize how capable you were and how much your colleagues respected you. Judging you by your education was a mistake, and I'm sorry." Elizabeth apologized me. "I know it's a bit late to ask you to come back, but would you consider being our exclusive contractor? It seems everyone feels more at ease with you around." I was surprised by her unexpected proposal. When Justin arrived late, he asked her, "Have you already discussed it with him?" "I've talked to him, but he looks as surprised as if he's been bitten by a fox, doesn't he? He might not believe it coming from me. So Justin, please explain to him," she said, then left the conference room. I heard the rest from Justin, who proposed that I stay on as a permanent contractor, albeit with yearly renewals, but I decided to decline. "Justin, I appreciate the sentiment, but I want to test my skills in various places. I want to see how far my abilities can take me. I can't commit to a permanent position," I said, declining the offer to stay permanently. However, I was able to take on work on a project-by-project basis. In creating programs, I involved Ethan, ensuring he understood the process well enough to handle any issues in my absence. This way, I could comfortably work with other clients, knowing Ethan's growth would also benefit. Believing that mentoring someone could also be a way of giving back, I shared all my knowledge with Ethan. He quickly grasped the concepts, fully understanding the logistics system program, allowing me to move on to other clients and gradually increase my workload. With a car given by my family, I traveled anywhere across the U.S., taking on any job that came my way. 5 years had passed since I started this lifestyle. I got married in my 3rd year of independence, and to everyone's surprise, my partner was Elizabeth. When I handed Justin the wedding invitation, he was astounded. After getting married, my wife quit her job to manage the accounting for my company, offering her support. Her stubbornness still causes some trouble since she never apologizes first after an argue, but she cares deeply for my father. Because she manages our home so well, I can travel across the country without worry. This way, I've always felt fortunate to be supported by others, allowing me to turn my passion into my livelihood. Someday, I'll become a father, and when that time comes, I hope to shower my family with the same love my father gave me. What a coincidence! Working on a Saturday, just as if he happened to pass by, our classmate David comes over to us while we're having a meeting in the hotel lounge. I had anticipated this would happen ever since he overheard our conversation at the reunion, but I'm afraid to see the other party's face. When I timidly check their expression, they're looking at me as if they're extremely displeased. I'm in the middle of an important meeting. Can we talk some other time? The more I try to be accommodating, the more David seems to enjoy it. Pointing at me with the enthusiasm of a detective accusing a criminal in a drama, he says, "This guy is the kind of person who would steal my girlfriend. I wouldn't recommend doing business with him. How about doing business with us instead?" When I reach out to Sarah, my secretary, for help, she sends a message back saying, "There's no problem at all." Sarah must have a plan. She's excellent at her job, and following her advice has never led me astray. Believing in her words, I take a deep breath. It must be frustrating for you, right? Let me give you a piece of good advice. My wife is an incredibly capable secretary. Thinking my silence is an admission of defeat, David continues, "You, with your limited education, couldn't even dream of associating with, let alone meeting such a high-spec beauty. I hope help arrives in time." As if my prayers were answered, a black luxury car emerges from the underground parking and stops right in front of us. "President Thompson, I'll take it from here." Seeing Sarah step out of the car, David turns pale. "My name is Michael Thompson. I run a company that deals with wedding foods. It all started with a part-time job during my college days. I applied for a wedding staff position simply because it paid well. Seeing the happy faces of the brides, grooms, and guests made me want to work in the wedding industry, something I never imagined would lead me to start my own company. After working as a company employee for 8 years after graduating, I started my own business at 30. Before I knew it, the company had been running for over 10 years, and I was 42. Currently, we collaborate with various companies to provide unique wedding foods, which has made us popular among the younger generation. Though it hasn't been all smooth sailing, seeing the smiles on the faces of the brides, grooms, and guests on social media comments has always made it all worthwhile. It's been a cycle of that ever since. I think I've led a not-so-bad life. I don't want to go. The invitation to the reunion arrived just as I was facing a crucial moment, wondering whether a significant contract would be finalized. I'm already fretting on a daily basis. The last thing I need is more trouble. Apparently, I seem approachable and have been told that people find it easy to confide in me, regardless of gender. Having lent an ear to classmates, colleagues, bosses, and subordinates over the years has enhanced my communication skills, which has been beneficial in my current job, making all those consultations a good experience for me. However, there's one bitter memory. During my second year of high school, a female classmate consulted me about her boyfriend, David. David was in the same class, and although we didn't talk much, he was someone I knew. He's just too childish, getting sulky whenever things don't go his way. I strongly agreed with her. David's immature thinking often complicated things during team sports and group activities. Internally, I thought it would be better for her to break up with him, but it seemed she had no intention of doing so. It was one of those typical situations where the girl had already made up her mind and just wanted someone to listen. So I just listened without offering any specific advice. "Thank you, I feel relieved after talking to you, so I'll hold off on breaking up for now." She looked refreshed after our conversation, which made me feel good about lending an ear. But then the problem arose. "Hey, it's your fault we broke up." The next day, David was waiting for me at the front of the classroom, looking like he was ready for a confrontation. My fault. I just listened to her concerns, and she said she was considering breaking up but decided against it. Just listening. Don't play dumb. Someone saw you two looking cozy and chatting in the classroom. You two are involved, aren't you? Despite dodging a conversation about breaking up, it seems he pressed her and ended up steering towards a breakup himself. Thanks to female students who knew the situation stepping in, my classmates didn't misunderstand. but David alone insisted. They definitely have something going on. Afterward, he kept picking on me for anything, and we ended up in the same class the next year, leading to his so-called revenge continuing until we graduated from high school. I'd get called out by teachers for candy bars found in my desk that I knew nothing about, and whenever I had a girlfriend, he'd tell her, "You're just his second choice. He has someone else as his main." He did whatever he pleased. There's a reunion coming up, organized by that classmate. I haven't attended a reunion in over 10 years, so I thought I wouldn't receive an invitation anymore, but now, out of the blue, one has arrived. What do you think? My secretary, Sarah, coldly brushed me off, saying, "Don't ask questions when you already know the answer." He probably hasn't changed a bit and wants to continue that revenge on you. Sarah, when you say it, it sounds convincing. Sarah is 32, 10 years younger than me, but she appears more mature than her age. That's due to her upbringing. She has a personality that attracts troublesome men, and she's had her fair share of difficulties. It's been 5 years since she became my secretary, but I can't forget what she said on her first day at work. Is the interview still going on? According to Sarah, I was so nice that she thought she was being tested. At her previous job at a law firm, she was favored by a capable but dysfunctional lawyer, and without realizing it, she became his de facto personal secretary, even though she was just supposed to be a clerk. Her husband also has a personality like a grown-up child, and she always complains, "I'm surrounded by such men." I thought maybe he wanted to apologize for what happened during our school days, but if Sarah says so, I'll skip attending. I was about to send back the invitation with a "will not attend" response, but Sarah hastily grabbed my arm. Wait a minute, isn't that the day of the important meeting? And it's at the same hotel, right? I have completely forgotten because the meeting was on a Saturday. There was a product I had long wanted to handle for my company. It was from an established bakery in Washington, supplying wedding venues within the state with bread, but they had no intention of dealing with venues outside the state due to concerns over quality degradation, and they had refused contracts multiple times. CEO Anderson had finally agreed to meet, saying he was willing to discuss it if he happened to be in New York. So, I can attend the reunion after all, but it feels like a bad omen that it's on the same day. Without letting me interfere, Sarah swiftly took a pen from her pocket and marked "will attend" on the invitation. Why are you marking "will attend"? Mr. Thompson, attending this reunion will surely bring something good. The times don't overlap, so please enjoy yourself. Sarah was smiling, but her eyes were filled with anger. I racked my brain, wondering if I had done something to upset her. On the day of the reunion was scheduled during lunchtime in a banquet hall. The meeting was at 4 p.m., so I had plenty of time to attend after it finished. I don't drink, but I decided to forget about David for a while and enjoy catching up with old friends. Hey, isn't that Michael? Long time no see. Despite my hopes, David spotted me as soon as the reunion began. His face, not even trying to hide his scheming, gave me a bad feeling. It's been a while, thanks for sending the invitation. It was my turn to be the organizer this year, and I just had to see your face again, haha. From there, it was just an endless session of David bragging. I'm working at that wedding gift company now. You're in the same industry, so you must know the name, right? The company name he mentioned was that of the largest wedding gift company in the industry. I didn't know David worked there, but I certainly knew the company. Is that so? That's impressive. Right. I even created a gift series from scratch. I got a President's Award for it and a special bonus, so I went on an overseas spree. Haha. That story sounds familiar. I tried to remember where I'd heard it, but David's misconceptions made it impossible to focus. In your small company, it must be tough managing, and the CEO probably can't afford to give out special bonuses, right? You're still just an employee, aren't you? An employee. I founded my own company. Although David mentioned he knew I worked in the same industry, he seemed to be referring to a different company I used to work for, dealing with wedding foods. It's understandable not to know, given that we hadn't met since high school graduation. Even I didn't know which company David worked for until just now. You're a president. Don't make such a lame joke. It kills the mood, doesn't it? Just like in high school, David refuses to believe what I say. I tried to hand him my business card, but he brushed it off with, "I don't need your card, haha. You're always like this, trying to steal my girlfriend or beat me, huh? Too bad you can't win, haha." Then, he started rehashing the past, saying, "It was like this that time, and the same another time." The atmosphere got worse, and a male staff member intervened, thankfully. "Good evening, Mr. Thompson." Looking closer, it was the banquet manager, someone we always deal with as one of our customers. "Good evening. I apologize for the late greeting." "No worries. I heard you had a meeting later in our lounge." I was surprised by how well they knew it, but it seems CEO Anderson is a well-known guest at this hotel. Whenever he has business in New York, he always stays here. He has a sweet tooth, especially known for using the lounge for his love of sweets. I had heard CEO Anderson frequents this hotel, but I didn't realize the staff would know him by face and name. CEO Anderson loves our strawberry sundae. It requires expensive strawberries, so guests usually need a reservation, but we made a special arrangement today. After the staff member returned to work, I hoped the strawberry sundae would work in our favor, momentarily forgetting David was still there. "You have a meeting after this?" David asked with a smug smile. I hoped he wouldn't crash it. "I'm going to grab some food, I'm starving." I escaped for the moment, but he knew where the meeting was. David is likely to barge in. Yet, according to the staff member's earlier comments, changing the location might upset CEO Anderson. I blamed Sarah, who wasn't even here, for suggesting I attend. Sure enough, as our meeting began with 3 of us, David appeared. What a coincidence, working on a Saturday. He pretended to stumble upon us by chance. CEO Anderson prides in craftsmanship and values etiquette. He looked at me as if displeased when I cautiously checked his expression. "I'm in the middle of an important meeting. Can we talk later?" The more I try to appease him, the more David seems to enjoy it. He points at me dramatically, like a detective identifying a culprit in a drama. This man tried to steal my girlfriend. I wouldn't recommend dealing with someone like him. I don't know who you are, but how about doing business with us instead? David handed his business card to CEO Anderson. "I work at that wedding gift company. Unlike his small firm, I think it would be in your best interest to contract with us." CEO Anderson's face turned red with anger. "What is this nonsense?" "I'm terribly sorry, CEO Anderson. We will contact you later to reschedule." I thought we could only regroup and try again later, but CEO Anderson was not open to it. "That's enough. I will not contract with your company." I quickly instructed our representative to follow CEO Anderson, then messaged Sarah, who was waiting in the parking lot, in a panic. I rushed to settle the bill and follow. "What have you done?" Right after I shouted that, a reply from Sarah came in. "There's no problem. Read her message," calming my mind. Sarah must have a plan. She's competent, and following her advice has never led me astray. Believing in her words, I took a deep breath. David seems eager to see me in despair, following me as I make my way to the entrance with a light jog. Bitter, isn't it? This is payback for that day. You stole my girlfriend, so I thought I'd steal your contract, haha. It's been over 20 years, and it's all based on his misunderstanding, yet he still holds a grudge. Let me tell you something good before we part. My wife is an incredibly capable secretary. After working as a clerk at a major law firm, she's now the executive secretary at a company famous for wedding foods. She's a beautiful woman, 10 years my junior. David continues, thinking my silence is an admission of defeat. You, with your limited education, couldn't even dream of being with, let alone meeting such a high-spec beauty. Haha. As I exit the entrance to the sound of David's laughter, our representative is desperately trying to convince CEO Anderson. Please, let it be in time. As if in answer to my prayer, a black luxury car emerges from the underground parking lot and stops in front of us. Mr. Thompson, I'll take it from here. Sarah, stepping out of the car, looks straight at David. Thank goodness for Sarah, always quick to respond. I was waiting in the parking lot for this reason. It would be pointless if I didn't make it in time. David watches in astonishment as Sarah and I talk amicably. Why is Sarah here? It appears Sarah was indeed David's wife. I'm the executive secretary. It's not strange for me to be here, is it? The executive, this old man's, right. Even seeing Sarah and me converse, David still refuses to believe I'm the CEO. Still saying that after witnessing this, enough with the childish sore loser act. Sarah pulls out documents from her bag and offers them to CEO Anderson, who's about to get into the waiting car. CEO Anderson, these are comments from your customers living in New York on social media. CEO Anderson hesitates to take them, but Sarah doesn't back down. Gradually, as he reads, his expression changes. CEO Anderson, I respect your concern as a business owner about expanding outside the state and potentially compromising quality. However, people who have moved away from Washington and seen your breads on social media wish they could eat them for their own wedding. To those living in Washington, your bread is a taste of home. Please consider it. With a soft voice, CEO Anderson says, let's talk more about this next time, and gets into the car. We watch until the car is out of sight. That was close. I didn't know what would happen. Relieved, I sit down on the spot. I told you it would be okay. Didn't you trust me? I know you're capable, Sarah, but this was seriously worrying. After all, I didn't even know Sarah and David were married. I wish she had at least told me that much in advance. So, you're stealing my woman again. David, who had been quiet, glares at us, finally snapping back to reality. Like I said, I didn't steal anyone, neither then nor now. I'm just the president of the company Sarah works for, and she's my secretary. Sure, as if a single guy like you hiring a beautiful, younger woman like Sarah as your secretary must have an ulterior motive. I hired Sarah for her competence. Though David realized that by saying this, he's demeaning his own wife, implying she was chosen as a secretary only for her age and looks. Sarah seems unfazed, but I'm annoyed. He knows nothing of the hard work she does behind the scenes. This isn't the time to be arguing about this. Are you okay with how things are? What do you mean? Your company is negotiating with CEO Anderson too, right? Now that she mentions it, that's true. CEO Anderson once let slip during a phone conversation. He mentioned it was bothersome being negotiated with by David's company as well, asking to drop the subject of wedding foods. You handed out your business card, right? David's face turns pale. The business card, of course, had both the company name and his name on it. If I were in CEO Anderson's shoes, I'd probably think twice about doing business with a company that employs someone like David. Seriously, I knew you were immature, but I didn't expect you to be this thoughtless. Didn't it cross your mind that you might be disrupting a meeting with potential business partners, even competitors? Trembling, David fumbles with his phone to call his boss. We can hear him being scolded even from where we stand. A few days later, CEO Anderson contacted us saying, if you can come to Washington, I'm willing to listen again. So, the representative, Sarah, and I headed to Washington. Is that David? Upon entering the company, we see David and his team. With David looking quite sheepish next to a colleague and someone who appears to be his boss, probably here to apologize. Sarah doesn't even make eye contact with her husband. It's good of you to come. I was surprised to be greeted personally by CEO Anderson, who then shot David a sharp glare. I won't be contracting with your company. I will be doing business with Michael's company. That's all there is to discuss. You may leave now. Please wait. About the other day, David's attempt to apologize is cut short as only we are led into the guest room. I catch a glimpse of his dejected face as the door closes. I apologize for the other day. He's a former classmate who mistakenly believes I stole his girlfriend. That's irrelevant. What matters is, I hadn't finished my strawberry sundae, and I just called you to Washington out of spite. Don't worry about it. I promise to have a strawberry sundae ready if we meet again, and CEO Anderson smiles happily. The contract is finalized in a friendly atmosphere. Now people from Washington living all over the country, and those unfamiliar with your company can enjoy your bread. Thank you. With this, we'll be able to bring smiles to even more people. We live in a convenient era where we can instantly see reactions on social media. I'm looking forward to everyone's responses. My wife insists on celebrating our wedding anniversary every year, so we're reminded of our wedding day annually. It's an honor to have our products be part of such special memories. Thank you. I felt impressed by his words. After that, we discuss creating exclusive products for wedding with CEO Anderson's company, and time flies. I had almost forgotten about David when I asked Sarah about him a month later. What happened to David? He lost his place in the company after that childish display in front of CEO Anderson and resigned suddenly one day. Resigned. That must have been tough. While I might have been pleased if David weren't Sarah's husband, I couldn't celebrate considering her situation. It's okay to be happy about it. I planned for this from the start. Sarah had long hoped to make David reflect on his actions, tired of his perpetual immaturity. The reunion seemed like a perfect opportunity. Thanks to you, Mr. Thompson, we're financially stable, and without children I can support us on my salary alone. David has become a stay-at-home husband, frequently criticized by Sarah. I would have divorced him if he hadn't learned from this. His lack of reflection despite everything would have been the last straw. Seeing Sarah's radiant smile, I vowed never to upset her. A year after the reunion, Sarah hands me a letter. What's this? Open it, it's something that'll make you happy. I pull out a letter from an envelope with a charming design. It's filled with neat, feminine handwriting. It's things like this that make it all worth it, no matter the hardships. A bride from Washington expresses her gratitude for being able to use CEO Anderson's bread for her wedding. Mentioning it brought back childhood memories. It would be wonderful to continue offering such meaningful flavors for wedding. I slowly nodded, agreeing, that's true.